In Billy Waters' Ace in the Hole, Kirk Douglas plays a disgraced journalist who deliberately prolongs the entrapment of a man in a cave-in who sensationalized the event for personal gain. Wilder took inspiration from the reporting of Wilbur Burke Miller on the Sand Cave cave-in, which enraptured a national audience during a 17-day period and earned Miller a Pulitzer Prize. Ace in the Hole was a bit of a novelty for its time, a striking and bitingly cynical portrayal of the press as a purely self-interested entity. Douglas's character fabricates details, add dramatic exaggerations to the event, colludes with the government to gain exclusive coverage of the story in exchange for promoting the corrupt local sheriff, and leverages it to get back his old job at the New York Times. For a time, it was an absurd notion. Surely not the press, not the institution upon which democracy is built. Here is an excerpt from a contemporary New York Times article. It is badly weakened by a poorly constructed plot, which depends, for its strength, upon assumptions that are not only naive but absurd. There isn't any denying that there are vicious newspapermen and that one might conceivably take advantage of a disaster for his own private gain. But to reckon that one could so tie up and maneuver a story of any size while other reporters chew their fingers is simply incredible. Of course, this is a flawed assertion. Isn't the journalist human? Do you not feel the heat of flesh when you grip their hand? Do they not lust, love, want, hate, mock, the same as the rest of us do? But to be human is to be fallible, to be capable of wrong. And for societies which, despite everything, still rely on the press for information and still entreat them as agenda setters, those who set the discourse of the day, the wrong action, intentional or not, can be fatal. And so there lies the importance of journalism ethics, which provides us with the means of finding ways to do better. 2. As journalists, be beholden to the society that we serve, to surpass Hobbes' rational egoism, and adhere to the ethical principles of journalism, which is, according to the Society of Professional Journalists, to seek truth and report it, minimize harm, act independently, and be accountable. We cannot possibly cover every ethical issue that arises in the practice of journalism, but through analyzing the cases present in this video, we hope to exemplify a few. After all, applied ethics like that of journalism ethics is hardly ever straightforward and necessitates a case-by-case evaluation. Conflicts of interest in journalism pertain to the meaning creation process on the side of the producer or the journalist. According to Stuart Hall's reception theory, among the elements that can affect the creation of meaning are frameworks of knowledge, relations of production, and technical infrastructure. Conflicts of interest are all about the second one, about how our relationships with others and to systems of power can affect the creation meaning, in particular, how it can create bias or prejudice. Let's talk about RFK Jr. or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. is a known politician in the United States. He ran for presidency a while back and recently became a member of Trump's political cabinet. But our concern does not lie there. What is relevant to our video is the fact that RFK Jr. holds the scientifically untrue view that vaccines cause autism. Still, despite abundant evidence to the contrary, his is a trusted voice for many for reasons including but not limited to his attractiveness, charisma, and Kennedy lineage, and mass propagation of his dangerous ideas can deny a healthy life to many children whose parents believe the politician's false claims. Most publications publicizing RFK Jr.'s claims have taken great care to contextualize them, adding information to discredit the untruth. This was not the case for Rolling Stone and Salon back in 2005, which chose to distribute an article written by Kennedy via its platforms. Editors and journalists knew of Kennedy's view and its lack of scientific basis. Many even noted the essential incoherence of Kennedy's article, and certain editors, acting in accordance with the ethical systems of journalism, wanted to add editors' notes to contextualize Kennedy's statements. Despite these clear reservations, Jan Wenner, co-founder of Rolling Stone and dear friend of Kennedy, chose to push for the article's publication. He was my friend, and I want to help him. The public be damned. In this instance, the interest of the controlling organization triumphed over reporting the truth. Though the ideal journalist is independent, the fact of the matter is that most journalists work for companies and are subject to the biases thereof. Note, for instance, NPR, or National Public Radio, previously lauded as America's most balanced publication as a result of CEO John Lansing's newfound fixation on race and identity. Following the 2020 BLM movement, a massive paradigm shift occurred across the organization. Former NPR editor Erie Berliner reported that due to the organization's bias, NPR reporters purposefully omitted information regarding Hunter Biden's laptop scandal for fear that it could help Trump. There is no easy answer for maneuvering conflicts of interest. The journalist could go independent, but this is hardly a sustainable way to practice the profession. Perhaps the only way out is an awareness of the press's position as an arbiter of truth, and knowing this, journalists should adapt to their given situations such that the truth may prevail. The press serves the public, existing as a tool of acquiring and disseminating information, in particular, truth. Yet ethical conflicts can arise when the press acts in service of the public. Celebrities are the people of the public, and the public does wish to know of them, yet in fulfilling this desire, the journalists can overstep boundaries. Perhaps the most notable instance of this was that of Princess Diana, who was incessantly badgered by the press for the slightest snippet of a person or the smallest soundbite. All done, of course, to sate the public's desire to know of Diana. In the years preceding her tragic death, her life was disallowed the slightest privacy. In essence, the press subjected her to a sort of daily torture. Nary a moment was spent without a camera in her face or trailing reporters sneaking secret glances. It was this lack of privacy that caused her death. In fleeing their hounding, Diana's car suffered an unfortunate crash. Similarly, the press has disregarded privacy in its coverage of Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. Emails, private letters, and more. Every detail of her life was scrutinized by a hungry press which responded to a hungry public. This blatant disregard for privacy in serving the public has caused much mental distress to the Duchess. In her interview with Oprah Winfrey, she confesses to having suicidal thoughts due to the invasive nature of the press. Of course, this goes against the journalistic principle of harm limitation. Privacy is a basic human right, and regardless of the subject matter, the journalist should allow them that basic dignity. The public has the right to know, yes, but the press ought to act as a public conscience and balance between that which the audience wants and more meaningful reporting. It is ever so easy to fabricate, to make things up. We all know the pain of research, hours and hours and hours toiling to some distant conclusion. So though we know better, though our code of ethics implores us elsewise, we lie. Or perhaps in the heat of exhaustion, we omit or disregard information that seems false, such that our conclusion can be reached with ease. So too have journalists suffered from this ailment. In the early days of Joseph Pulitzer, that famed journalist who eventually became an exemplar, a champion of ethical journalism, fabrication was not uncommon. Pulitzer famously added drama to his reporting, blaring headlines, emotionality, and people who were more like actors, stories that were subtly ironed out so that they seem more straightforward. So what were the facts omitted or a few details conjured? The day was done and the public was satisfied. But the day was not done. As stated, journalists play an important agenda-setting role, and by doing this, by disregarding the truth in favor of easy sensationalism, Pulitzer and his chief competitor, William Randolph Hearst, helped push America into the Spanish-American War, and in its wake, the deaths of many young men and an entire generation scarred by warfare. Or note the case of the disgraced New York Times journalist Jason Blair. Back in 2003, it was discovered that the newly promoted Blair had fabricated and plagiarized information for story after story after story. The reasons for Blair's actions matter not. Maybe it was mental illness, maybe it was pressure from the Times, or merely a desire to stand out. The fact remains that Blair deceived and misled a large portion of the public using the credentials of the Times and, by extension, the credentials of the press. In response, the Times implemented more stringent standards-checking measures to ensure future truthfulness and had to spend years to repair its reputation. Truth-seeking is always a difficult task, but it is the holy mission that lies at the heart of journalism. Regardless of the difficulty, members of the press must make an effort to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Find primary sources, check facts, identify sources. As seen with Pulitzer and Hearst, untruths promoted by the press can have tragic social consequences. And as seen with Blair, when untruths have been discovered, take responsibility as the Times did, and be held accountable for your misconduct. Reporting the truth is hard, and the journalists, well, they get paid pennies. They definitely do not get paid enough. But theirs is a job with much social influence and ramifications, wherein truth, or lack thereof, can lead to deep personal and social consequences. And so goes the common refrain, with great power comes great responsibility. So act ethically, though it's always difficult to do so. Know that you hold the make of your world in your hands and act accordingly. Through this short video, we hope to have provided you with some insight into the ethical issues that abound the practices of the press. For additional information, you might refer to the New York Times Code of Ethics, or for a more critical view of ethics in journalism, or the lack thereof, you can refer to News and the Culture of Lying, How Journalism Really Works by Paul H. Weaver. Good day and goodbye.